And here we are, we're beginning the Clear Creek County Board of Commissioners meeting, May 2nd, 2023, 8:30 a.m. Sean is not with us in person today. He's online at some point. I know he's flying out, so he'll be with us intermittently from the airport, I think. And I don't know exactly when the time is that he'll be here. So the first item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have any public comment? I see no one in the room.
Nope, nobody online.
Okay, second item. We're already back on time. Commissioner updates.
I have a couple of things. First off, an update on House Bill 1165. This is the bill that
Right.
Rep. Amable and Senator Sonia Jaquez Lewis are running on our behalf. It has been sitting in the local Senate Local Government Committee for a while, was postponed again yesterday. So its path has become very narrow, but it is currently scheduled for Thursday morning or for Thursday afternoon, and it still has a shot. So I'm prepared to testify on it, and we'll have to reach out to Sean later to check his schedule and see. But
yeah, I'm on the meeting. I've been here for a bit.
Some amendments could be out. Sean, you're here.
Yeah, he's on there.
And it says he's talking, but I don't hear him.
Volume up. Oh,
All right, try again.
Sean,
Yeah, I don't get back from Dallas until Thursday evening. So if it ends up happening on Thursday, I'm not going to be able to help. But if it happens after that, I would be happy to.
what was that? I didn't hear it.
He said that he will be in Dallas until Thursday evening. So if it happens on Thursday, he's not available. So maybe the two of us could do it.
Okay.
And a number of other people are lined up.
You're talking testimony on 1165.
Yeah.
Okay, I kind of got jumbled up as we were looking for him. Okay, that's where I thought you were headed with that.
Yeah. So that's an update on that. I don't think I have any other updates that are urgent for us for right now, but maybe I'll think of something.
Okay. If you might think of something, well, I just have a couple things to mention. I've been testifying on a few bills also. Last night testified on Senate Bill 280, which is primarily a GHG and greenhouse reduction bill. I mean, it's got a number of things in it. Among what I was testifying on last night was some amendments, which are probably not going to be picked up with regard to trucking and some requirements and incentives, more incentives for companies to receive tax credits for purchasing new trucks, and some requirements about what it takes to be able to get any of those kind of incentives. And unfortunately, the enterprise zone tax credits have been available to people buying really old trucks that are highly polluting trucks. That does impact Clear Creek County because about 10% of the, although on about 10% of the vehicles on the road are those trucks that contributed to 25% of GHG and a lot of ozone and other particulate matter that could have some impact on some of our readings that we've seen. So, but overall, it's a pretty decent bill still. And another bill that happened that I witnessed and wasn't aware of until I saw it, and I can't remember the number on it right now, is one that is giving the casinos and the gaming towns the ability to extend credit on the spot to people who have run out of money, as long as they borrow over $1,000 so they can continue gambling. And I got a long history of that, and I was shocked at the way it was depicted as a great way to stimulate the economy and also help people who want to just have a good time with their recreation. And anyway, I just want to say it. Sorry, if whoever thinks it's a good bill, no offense. I just was shocked at the idea that it's a major ability to take what was supposed to be limited stakes and give it the opportunity to increase the take a lot in one night or 2 or 3 days to somebody who runs out of cash and tries to make it up. And the other thing is that we're working, something is, I think it's popped up once, and I may have mentioned it a little more, but we'll be doing a presentation at NOCO. Each one of the partners in NOCO will be doing a presentation on their EDI efforts, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And some people will correct me and say DEI. And when I've said DEI, I've been corrected and told it's EDI. So, each has their own flavor when they use that acronym. But and we were asked to present what we've been doing in our county and on a meeting on the 19th. And so I'll be doing that. But we have engaged Amy and Megan and Carol Ann so that on the HR front, the PIO front, and also on our recreation management front, we can be thinking about, what kind of policies we might have in the future. We have none really at this time. And so it's something that will probably come back at a future meeting about some recommended policies for being able to reflect an inclusive community and inclusive organization. And we can have a more robust conversation later on and decide what, if anything, we want to do as a group, once we've had time for that. And I don't have anything else right now. So, Sean?
I don't really have anything either. I'm going to be in transit today, so I'm going to do my best to at least listen to everything that's said. And I may have to go back and watch some of it later or follow up later.
Understood. We kind of knew that would be the deal. You gave us plenty of warning, so.
The only other thing that popped into my head just really quick is if you're a Denver Post subscriber, check out the front page of the Sunday edition. The project to build a child care center in Idaho Springs was among some other projects featured in an article about the severe challenges with child care access coming out of the pandemic and how that's a very acute need now. So check it out.
I did actually have one other thing to add. I know it's now becoming public, some aggregated data about the property tax increases in the state of Colorado. And I think that that's something that we as a management team need to get in front of really soon because some of the numbers are unprecedented.
Right.
Segue.
Yeah. So I think that's a good opportunity to segue into did you have anything else? I'm sorry.
I do not. Thanks.
Okay. So I think it's a good opportunity to segue into the county manager's report.
Yes, thank you. And good morning. Is Maria on? Mm-hmm. So that was a good segue, Sean. We've been talking a lot about the new bill that was introduced late last night. Just the whole impact of these new assessed valuations that have just come out in the last 24 hours. I had a pretty detailed conversation with George yesterday about it. There certainly is going to be an impact. I know Maria already met this morning with our assessor, Donna G, to get an understanding of the exact impact of these new assessed valuations. And we were also having a conversation about how did this kind of pop up in some ways out of the blue. And I think some of it has to do with the fact that I'm not so sure we really understood the full impact of repealing the Gallagher Amendment back in 2020, and you combine that with the assessed valuation, with the increases in the market with respect to our residential property values. We're seeing some changes in how we're going to be projecting our assessed valuation. Maria, one question for you. I did not write down the exact percentage that you two of you developed this morning. It was 20-something%. Can you remind me of that percentage?
15.8.
15.8, that's right. It was 15.8 after we subtract out some of the changes with respect to some of our other taxpayers, et cetera. So we're projecting right now a 15.8% increase in overall for our general fund, which is going to equate to probably a $1.5 million hit an increase in revenue collection. So that's quite different than what we presented to you just even, I guess, 2 weeks ago now with respect to the retreat we had on budget. So those are just preliminary estimates, et cetera. I know there's going to be an impact with respect to the bill, with some relief coming for property taxpayers. There's a backfill element within the bill that would keep us whole that we believe that we're going to qualify for based on our initial read of the bill itself. So
It's a surprise.
it's a surprise. It's good for taxpayers, and considering there's going to be a backfill element to the bill itself, keeps us whole moving forward in a time of great need for us. So
Yeah.
it is good, and stay tuned, I guess, for more as we continue to do our analysis of the bill itself and the impact of these new assessed valuations. So did I get that correct, Maria? Do you have anything else you want to add to that?
Nope, you got it.
Excellent.
I just wanted to, if I could just, while we're on that
Yeah, of
topic,
course.
if I could just jump in and say that I'm very pleased that you and George talked about that and you guys are working about it. And I'm not surprised Sean brought it up. I was thinking the same thing because it's like kind of knocked my socks rolled up and down a couple of times when I read it too in the last, 36 hours and stuff, and started to wrap my head around it and that it was coming. And I saw the numbers. I was kind of shocked and was surprised at the 44.8 number or something that I saw for Clear Creek County when I went to the map. And certainly but the timing on it is good because it will help inform that next budget retreat meeting that we'll be having in a few weeks. And this can factor into it now for a more realistic and refined picture. And I look forward to having good information to work off of by then.
Yeah. Sean, I know some of those numbers that we were just quoting are a little different than what you saw in some of the emails that were flying around yesterday. And a lot of that just is from the work that Donna and Maria did together in terms of kind of rehoning their numbers and reanalyzing our own numbers. So that's part of the reason for the change from what you saw yesterday. So,
Yeah, I mean, based on how recently this conversation has really become public, I did not assume that those were final numbers, but thanks for saying that.
yeah, definitely.
I may just add a few things. First, the backfill stops currently as it's written when we get more than 20% in assessed value increase over, was it 2022?
22, yes.
And I asked a question yesterday in a meeting about it. That number includes new construction. And I think that's a policy mistake. I think it would harm Clear Creek County. So we're asking for that bill to change so that the 20% is truly reflective of price inflation of what's already built. And we're not harmed by having new construction, which is a goal that we have to, develop our economy. I also just want to comment, taking 50% out of a $2.9 million deficit is awesome and does not change the need for us to really continue to make progress as we have on finding better ways to do business. And it probably does not change our need to have a conversation with the taxpayers about the services they value and would vote for a tax increase to pay for. I think it makes those conversations easier. It makes it a lot more palatable and frankly possible for us to continue to provide good government in Clear Creek County. But we've got a long road ahead of us.
Yeah, Maria confirms her numbers exactly, and we're ready by the retreat, we'll have a better understanding of what that is. But George is right. If our initial assessment says that it got us halfway to covering what we need to be a sustainable organization, then we still continue to work hard on the other half. But it's a real shot in the arm to know that we just got to boost, got a boost up the hill a little bit. So,
yeah, looks like you're going to say
the other comment I have is, I don't view this as, quote, money in the bank or anything like that. I mean, the same policymakers who, in my opinion, created the problem in the first place are now looking to do something to fix it, which will probably have more unintended consequences. So
right.
I completely agree that a long time ago, some board, our board or some board before us should have had this adult conversation about what are the right level of services and how are we going to fund them sustainably. And I don't see this latest development changing that conversation one bit.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Sean. And what was running through my head was that bill will not have a unanimous vote. There's no doubt about that. And there will be other bills to follow later.
Well, and to that end, this is going to take a voter approved initiative, or I guess that's the wrong word, referendum, to pass for these numbers to hold true. Right. So, I just got to say, I appreciate those comments from the three of you. This does not change our need to right size our ship. It does not change our need to really assess how we provide services moving forward and what that's going to mean for us moving forward. So this is really good news. But it doesn't change that need to continue to look at how we do business moving forward. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. I do appreciate that.
One last thing, because you mentioned it and it wasn't on my mind. This, as it's written right now, will be a referendum,
Yeah.
right? And so the voters will have the opportunity to vote on it. And we don't tend to take a lot of positions on statewide stuff. This is one that once the bill is final and we can really look at it, this board might want to think about taking a position on.
Judging on its merits once it's finalized. And for clarification, my point was that the bill itself that refers it will not be unanimous, the vote on that. And then the vote itself will not be unanimous, which means that there will be people out there trying to float other bills next year. I mean, there's always a kind of a political yin and yang going on where people are trying to push the needle back the other direction. You push the needle, somebody starts pushing the needle back the other way. So that's all I meant.
The voters are being asked to decrease their tax bills. So those tend to be successful. Yeah. Just a couple other items for you. Just a reminder, next week is the Emerge meeting, May 10th, Wednesday night. Another reminder, I am out of the office beginning this coming Saturday through the following Saturday. I'll be in Arizona, reachable by phone, but I'm gonna try and disconnect from my email, but certainly you can get me on my phone. And then another reminder, we have a joint meeting with Gilpin County on May 23rd. That meeting is scheduled to begin at 12:30 at Charlie's Place. So it is a tour of Charlie's Place with the Gilpin County Commissioners. And then moving on to the health clinic for a working lunch with Gilpin County at 1:15. So Beth sent out a meeting invite to all of you in the last week or so. So
I did not receive that. Do I need to attend? It is a board meeting.
you should, I'm sorry, you didn't get that.
Nope.
We'll get that on your calendar.
Thanks.
And I think that's it.
You just reminded me of a couple of other things when you mentioned you'd be out of town. I have a couple of conferences that I may be attending on transit rail conferences, combination rail and transit. One is Rail Evolution in Phoenix in November, and the other one is next month in June, which I probably won't go to, which is, and I can't remember if it's APTA or what the acronym is for the organization, but it's a similar transit conference, more transit oriented in Pittsburgh in June. I probably won't be able to make that, but I'm going to if I can. I don't intend to, burden our expense too much on that, if any. Probably drive to Phoenix if I go, but I'll miss the first meeting. The first Tuesday in November, I won't be available because I'm doing that. It has to do with some decisions we're making, and actually, it sounds like an increase, but it's actually a reduction in the activities of the AGS committee at the CE, which has been taking a lot of time from both for myself and for us as a county. And we're looking at restructuring some of that stuff to be a little bit less onerous going forward in the future. But a couple of tasks we have bitten off as we've narrowed our role is to take the responsibility over the next few years to kind of jumpstart some technological reevaluation of what can and can't happen in the quarter. So this work that I'll be doing isn't necessarily to force something to happen, but to determine, what the viability is of our continued efforts in that area. It's like to do a real solid analysis of it so that we can evaluate what the value of our time is working on that going forward. It may turn out that it reveals that it's a survey of the whole technological landscape for the long time to come, and determine how much time we should actually spend working on it, whether there are any possibilities out there, because rail in this corridor or some kind of fixed guideway has been a hot topic for a really long time. And I'll just let you know that over at the CE, I've kind of expressed that I only want to attend meetings and have conversations about things that are actionable and sometime within our lifetimes. And if they're not, then we ought to wait until we get closer to when they are actionable from both a financial and a physical side. Because to try to project and work towards something right now that couldn't happen for another 30 years is kind of silly, because you don't know what the options are going to look like in 30 years. It's good to keep your eye on the landscape but to invest a lot of time in planning for it when you're looking at a solution that we can't envision. These cell phones are only, 16 years old right now. And this type of cell phone, our smartphones. And so who knows what they're going to look like in 30 years and who knows what transportation will look like in 30 years. So that said, I promise I'm done with any comments. If you're done.
You jogged my memory. The CC4CA retreat, Colorado Communities for Climate Action, is an organization we're a part of. Their retreat is the 8th through the 9th of June. I don't think it impacts any of our shared calendars, but I would like to go. And I think the cost is, a hotel room. It's over in Avon or somewhere over there. So if it's okay with you guys, I would do that.
I'm considering going to it too, and I don't know that I'll need a room. I haven't made up my mind if I can be there both days anyway. So, but I may attend, but I'll be a low rent attendant. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm, that's not on my calendar, but I don't have any issue with you guys traveling there for what it's worth.
Thank you.
Okay. The next thing on the agenda is the local liquor licensing authority agenda. And so we'll move into that form, and it's consideration of approval of a special event permit for the Clear Creek Metropolitan Recreation District, Nanette.
Good morning. This is listed as an administrative item. If there's no public comment,
Right.
you can just approve it administratively. The event has been held just fine the last couple of years. Rec District does a good job.
Okay, and from your tone, I take it that the staff recommendation is
Yes.
thumbs up approval.
Departments have,
Okay.
yep.
All right. Do we have any public comment? Nope. Seeing and hearing none. Do we have any comment from the board? Nope. You're good to go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next item is the consent agenda. And before I read them, is there anything that either one of you would like to take out of the consent agenda for discussion? George and Sean, or for that matter, anyone else?
Just a quick comment, no questions. Congrats to Beth Luther and the Transit Department for getting that Transit State of Colorado Sub Award. That's a big win for us.
Yes.
I did have a follow-up question for the future. I'm curious to know what the ridership looked like for that Loveland spur that got added that's related to this grant. We can talk about that later, though.
Okay.
I would like to suggest that somehow we should have some kind of a resolution or an action item to have a Beth Luther hood ornament to put on the front of all of our transit vehicles from now into eternity. Okay, that to honor her work in bringing transit to Clear Creek County. All right, we next have a continued abatement hearing for Lewis. Consent agenda. I'll read the consent agenda now. Thanks, George. Consideration, number one, consideration of approval of warrant register, Maria Ostrom. Consideration of approval of ratification of execution of settlement agreement pertaining to the U.S. District Court case between Mystic versus BOCC. Consideration of approval of the 2023 first quarter public trustee report. Consideration of approval of April 20th, 2023 Board of County Commissioners meeting minutes. Consideration of approval of Transit Department State of Colorado Subaward Agreement 23 HTRZL 119. Consideration of approval of Transit Department State of Colorado Subaward Agreement 23-HTRZL 118. And that's it. It's the 6 of them. Do I have a motion?
Move we approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have the continued abatement hearing for Lewis, Donna G. Should we give that 5 minutes? Do we have anyone on board is the owner of the property with us today?
I think he was going to join us.
Yeah, just to clarify, sorry,
Yes.
just to clarify for the record, so we had a second and a motion. all voted, so.
All in favor? Didn't we say that?
You did that, so I just need to, for the record, that if the motion passed.
Okay, the motion passed. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Good, thank you. So do we wish to, Peter, should we do the abatement hearing at 9:05 or at 9? Which it is now.
I think it's fine if you begin it now.
Okay, did you say he is?
Yes, he's there.
Okay. Sorry, guys, I'm a little jumpy today, running a little bit quick. I didn't get as much sleep last night for some reason. Woke up in the middle of the night. Something about a bear in my dreams. I don't know what that was, but a bear looking for her cubs, and I was between her and the cubs somehow.
Peace out for sure.
It wasn't fun. Okay, Donna, you ready to go?
Yes. In looking into the abatement for Mr. Lewis, it was determined that his building was at 50% as of January 1st, 2022. Therefore, he was overvalued, and the assessor's office is recommending approval as outlined in the petition for abatement. A value was at 865,280. We are recommending a value of 521,500.
Okay, and is the applicant in agreement with you?
I contacted him and emailed him. I
Yes,
didn't get a reply from the email, but when we spoke on the phone, he was okay.
Okay, does the applicant have any comment?
we spoke on the phone, and yes, that seems more fair. And I was in agreement with the valuation that she came to, so that's good. I really appreciate you guys taking the extra time here and looking deeper into this as well. Thank you.
You're welcome on behalf of our assessor. So do we have any comment from either one of the commissioners?
No, just thank you for, I'll repeat what Mr. Lewis said. For taking an extra look, and Mr. Lewis, we, as was explained last time, are pretty tightly bound by statute here, and I'm glad to see that we found a solution that was not arbitrary.
This is Sean. I agree.
Great. Do we have a motion?
Can you remind me the case number?
I'm looking back for it. I just went past it.
2331.
Accept the assessor's recommendation for tax abatement in case 23-31.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
We have a 9:15 appointment next with the Chief Judge of the Fifth Judicial District, the Honorable Paul Duckelman is.
The chief judge will be appearing in person and he's just not here yet.
Okay, well, why don't we take a break until 9:15 or when he arrives? Let's do that.
And I'm going to transition to my phone and heading to the airport. So if I don't appear before 9:15, just continue without me and I'll join as I can. Because I
Thanks,
get back in
Sean.
cell phone range. See you guys.
Yeah.
Let me look at this side.
Okay, we are recessed until 9:15 or the arrival of
Okay.
Judge Duckelman.
Is that-
That's her last name. I think her first name is Janine.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was the last dream I had. I had a lot of weird dreams during the night.
Just for
And I'll just let you know, my own history has not been frequent with the judges of the Fifth Judicial District, which is a good thing. Other than that, Terry Ruckriegel used to be a really good friend of mine, and I built his house years ago. And so we've known each other for a long time. And I used to be on the Judicial Performance Review Commission back before I was a commissioner some years ago when I worked in Summit County a lot. But and that's really all I have to say for introduction for myself.
Somehow Terry knows everybody. He's been here forever and everybody knows Terry. So, and he's still active. Terry in a lot of ways to me is sort of, this is his entire judicial branch. He's really been an amazing leader for our branch. But
We've known each other since about 73, something like that.
he's a great resource for me. But thank you for having us. I asked Peter and Brian if we could come and just sort of introduce ourselves to you and meet you, because I think it's important that we all know each other. And I'm Chief Judge Dunkelman. I've been on the bench for about 10 years. I sit in Eagle. I've been Chief Judge for coming on 2 years. I was in private practice for maybe 18, 19 years. My office was in Frisco. Which means that I traveled all over the district, spent a lot of time coming down to Clear Creek. As chief judge, that means I'm the administrative head of the district, which means in addition to my regular docket, I rely on these two an awful lot, but I'm the administrative head. And we're sort of broken down, the branch is broken down, or the district, in sort of two arms. We got the court side and the probation side. And the probation side is led by Julie Hanks. She's the chief probation officer. I'll have her introduce herself in a second. And the court side is, we have in each county, obviously we have judges. In Clear Creek, we have 2 judges. Eagle, we have 4, Summit 3, Lake 2. And they're really sort of the de facto leaders in each county that they sit in. But Mike really is the administrative arm of the court side. I'll have them introduce themselves a little bit.
All right, sounds great. So again, I'm Julie Hanks. I'm the Chief Probation Officer for the district. And I have a little history in each of the counties, but if you all remember Trailhead Wilderness School, which was in several locations, but I worked at Trailhead many, many years ago. So that was my connection with Clear Creek County. Right now I base out of Summit. So I've been with the judicial branch and with the 5th Judicial District for about 18 years. And travel throughout the district in my current role. So some of you may or may not have had contact with Stacy Hatch. She is the supervisor here in Clear Creek. And we have several folks up there. Dawn, I think some of you all know from her previous work with the Sheriff's Department, and she's a great local resource for us. But currently I can just, I'll keep it brief, but we have, I just looked, about 230 clients that we supervise out of this office. So many of those folks living in the county and many that are Clear Creek cases but have transferred elsewhere. So if that's kind of helpful to hear some numbers about the folks that we serve in this community. So thanks for having us.
I'm Mike Pichata. I'm the court executive for the 5th District, and I look over the administrative function in all 4 locations. I haven't worked as closely with this group of county commissioners. I don't really know you as well as I had worked with the previous, and Beth Luther, of course. She and I worked closely together when we did the phased remodel of the courthouse here. And it was great to work with the county commissioners here. You guys did a great job for us, and it really improved the space that we have over there. We used the same footprint and just made it a lot more usable space, provides a lot more services to the citizens here in Clear Creek County.
So one of my priorities is doing this, and it's hard for me to do it because I got a regular docket, but I think it's important for me to get down and spend time with my staff, for one, just so people know who I am. We're spread out a little bit, which makes this a bit of a challenge. But I think it's important. I'm going to try to, any excuse I have to come down to any of the get out of Eagle County, I think is important for me to meet the community and spend a little time with my staff so they know who I am as well. We've had the same struggles everybody has, hiring and keeping staff. But I will tell you, Clear Creek County from the judicial side is in such good shape. You guys are so well taken care of. I think probably right now this is the most solid county that we have. Probation is in great shape. Probation is in great shape. We got really strong leadership here. Our court side is in really strong shape. Wendy Grummins is doing just a fantastic job as clerk of the court, and our staff is just solid and been here for a while. And the two judges that you have here, you are really lucky to have. They are fantastic. Judge Jones and Judge Sharotis are just doing a really good job, and they're just really solid. So Clear Creek is really in strong hands right now. Our relationship with this county, I think we really value the relationship we have. I think we sort of have an open relationship. The renovation was fantastic. When people have issues, they reach out to us, so I appreciate that. And that's to me today had two purposes. I wanted you to meet me because we had never met before, and my only ask is that you don't hesitate to reach out. If you have issues, reach out to me. If it's reach out to Mike, Julie, the two judges here, Wendy, just let us know. That's my only ask that I have for you. If there's things that you're contemplating that are going to impact us, let us know. We really value the partnership and we want to talk about things. We know you guys have challenges. We have challenges as well. So I think an open dialogue is healthy for all of us. So I'm easy to find. Don't hesitate to reach out because we really want to be good partners with you. And the partnership has been great. That renovation, I can't tell you how fantastic that's been. How many years ago was that completed?
I think 2017, wasn't it?
It really just changed our ability to function in those courtrooms. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have. I wanted to tell a little story from last week. We just had a jury trial over there last week for various reasons, a little taxing on us, but we had a jury trial over there last week, and we got a letter from a juror at the end saying she had been on 3 or 4 jurors in the past however many years, and it was always a negative experience. But this one was so positive, and she had a lot of compliments for us, which I like to brag about, but it was beyond that. She said the whole experience was great. The court staff was great. The judges were great. The judge was great. The facility was great. It was just efficient. It was clean. Security was great, that it was appropriate. She felt safe but not intimidated. So I thought it was a really great compliment for all of us. So I wanted to let you guys know because I think that compliment goes to you in a lot of ways as well. So thank you for that.
We can share that letter with you if you'd like to. It was really said a lot about the county and said a lot about the courts.
And as you know, we all don't get a lot of compliments all that often.
If I could just respond to that, I would like to say that other than doing the occasional jail inspection, we've had little to do with, I think, the performance to which you refer with the judicial side and honestly with the sheriff's side, because sheriff runs, his own department. And so you, in large part, talk about, when you talk about how well the operation works from your perspective, I think you're really referring to the sheriff's office and the judiciary. And then we have, I'm going to state that in my opinion, we've had a little piece of that maybe, but so I just want to qualify and kind of reflect a little of the credit for your comments where it probably belongs. So.
Well, thank you for that. But I think I'm a big believer that the leadership in any entity really sets the tone for how things work. So I think you guys are strong leaders for your community, and I think that flows down. And thank you. We do a really good job. The sheriff's department does a great job, and but I think there's a lot to. Everything is very negative these days with government, and I think we all feel that. And I think we have to recognize that we all do a pretty good job, and we do it for the right reasons, and you guys do it. So
thank you for including us.
So accept a compliment because you guys deserve it.
I heard you mention facilities in there, and those are our people on this side of the shop, and I'm glad to hear. I have the same experience. I think our facility's in good shape, and so thank you. And I think Beth is the director for that team. So thank you, Beth.
Well, I was, but now it's Matt Taylor. So.
Oh, okay.
Fayez.
Thanks for catching that distinction. Courtney.
Yeah.
Any questions for us about what we do, how things are going, our structure?
I might just introduce myself. But I don't need to go first.
No, go for it. No, I'm fine. We're pretty.
So, yeah, I'm George Marlin. I'm a commissioner from the Central District that covers Idaho Springs mostly, part of Floyd Hill. And most of my engagement with the court system has been as a juvenile defendant. I have some friends that went through Trailhead Wilderness School, and I think they benefited a lot from that. Happy to report they're in better shape than maybe when you were talking to them. I don't know if you guys overlapped or not, but.
Excellent. That's 20 years ago at this point, but yeah, that's great. Great to hear.
Could be about the right timeline. And,
That's what we want to see.
so, yeah, and I'm in my second term, and yeah, appreciate your work and hear good things. Judge Jones participates pretty heavily in behavioral health and opioid work. We serve on a regional group together, figuring out what to do with all the opioid settlement money. She's been a solid voice over there, of compassion and a willingness to look at substance abuse issues with a lens of like, what does science have to tell us we can do differently and better than back in the DARE days, So compliments to her. Don't know Judge Shrewdis as well, but hear good things.
Well, that's great to hear. And I think we're just a little more creative, and warehousing people is just not the answer. There's better options for us at this point. So.
Yeah.
I think to the benefit of everyone, Commissioner Marlin has always been really candid about, we all have tended to be pretty candid about our life experiences and what they bring and how they kind of inform us to help these things, because, law enforcement and the judiciary have a clientele that is varied. You have victims, you have the accused, and then you determine whether or not your belief is they were the perpetrators and all that stuff. And then there is the whole thing to avoid recidivism at the end of the day, and rehabilitation along with keeping everyone safe. And it's a great big job. It's obviously very, very complex, and our lived experience helps inform us. I can verify from experience that 40 years ago, and it's probably still true today, if you forgot to pay that illegal left turn ticket, you might get a knock on your door in the middle of the night and have an experience with being fingerprinted. And those things happen, but I was treated courteously and then allowed to go home afterwards. So it told me to make sure I paid for an illegal left turn next time and remember to take care of the ticket. So those things come around. Nothing really jumps to mind for me, other than just kind of spent a lot of time over in Summit County just when I visited with Terry over there over the years. Like I said, we got to know each other very, very early on when he was an assistant DA in Clear Creek County when he first came here from Indiana. And it seems like I've had a window into it personally from watching him as he became a senior judge. And I've always been especially being involved with the Judicial Performance Review Commission. Once you get a little bit on the inside and have a window into it, it's a whole different thing from what you think when you're, having to evaluate judges for the ballot was something that, it seems like it almost feels like a silly little job to a lot of people. But when you look at it, it helps you understand what it means when shall we retain that judge. And it helps you understand how hard the job is, and why most of the time, and there are exceptions, but why most of the time, once you look at the whole thing, you realize it's a big job to do and people are trying hard to do the job, and that's why they're usually retained.
We have such a strong bench. I'll brag about it all.
No pun intended.
We no pun intended, but we do, and we're such a united bench, and it hasn't always been that way. But there's 10 of us, and we just all worked. We all like each other. We all support each other. We all back each other up. Judge Herodes has a family emergency. I'll run down here and I'll cover county court for Judge Jones. And I think we all understand it's a hard job. But it's a job where the job is to take care of the communities. And I think we all feel that and do it for the right reason. And the judicial performance, you mentioned that's a big deal. You get a do not retain, all of a sudden January 11th, you don't have a job. But I enjoy the process because we don't get that much feedback. And I think it's healthy feedback to hear the good, which you hope it's mostly good, the good and the bad. Because the feedback we generally get, you get in the courtroom, everybody says, well, what a great job you're doing. And as soon as they walk out of the courtroom, they're not saying that. But so it's really a positive way for us to get feedback from the community on how we're doing. Every community is a little different. Our communities, all 4 of our counties are very different.
And we certainly understand that dynamic. Of
Yes.
Not knowing when you're going to still have a job. I will mention, that we were in receipt of your letter regarding the jail. And you've probably had other discussions about this, but, I'll just say it here in a public setting that we have had conversations about the jail coming out of a report, and the sheriff might want to comment on this too, coming out of a report from a firm called KRW that took a look at the whole sheriff's office and pointed out we have some pretty big maintenance issues in the jail. And they recommended, basically you have to look at something, right? And your options are a remodel, building a new one somewhere else, or figuring out how to outsource it. And what I'll share with you is that, as you're probably aware, a report like that can cause a lot of speculation and cause a lot of, information to run around about decisions that are imminent. What I can tell you is that this board hasn't viewed the closure of the jail as some kind of an imminent decision. If a change to the jail of that significance ever does come to us, I think whether it's in this seat or somebody else, you all will certainly be part of that conversation and will be cognizant of the impacts to you. And I understand that those impacts wouldn't be easy. And so we wouldn't make a decision like that lightly if it was necessary. So I just want to kind of, address that.
And I appreciate that. That does have us a little nervous, and that we understand the challenges you face. And that's really all I'm asking. Just keep us in the dialogue. And I appreciate that comment because obviously it does have an impact that I think is hard for a lot of people to sort of understand the impact. And we have a little of the experience, the Lake County experience, and with the impacts there. And so we have information, I think, that's helpful as you guys make decisions, because we appreciate you have tough decisions to make. We understand that.
We have continually changing financial landscape, as you know, and ours has been pretty volatile. And I mean, it's been somewhat predictable in a given direction, but it's also volatile with the changes in the changes in state law and state referenda, which we were just discussing this morning about time, the timing of certain things. So we've got to look at the long range life cycle costing, but I want us to just not do it in terms of, the capital. I want to think about the human capital too, and understand that, one of the things, and I don't know that I've ever brought this up in one of the meetings where we've had a few discussions, with the sheriff, that we want to look at all the different options and see what's out there. But one that sits high in my mind is, we mentioned that everybody's part of the clientele in a way, if you're trying to lower recidivism. One of the things that helps lower recidivism is to have the inmates. Sometimes people do have to be in jail. Mm-hmm. We've learned when we're dealing with child protection cases, for example, that the more we can try to keep families close together when we're trying to help them solve their problems that require some level of separation and oversight, that keeping families together is important to help those families have a chance of healing and becoming whole, fixing, their problems, which they have to do themselves in the end. The same is true when people are separated for incarceration. And when people are separated for incarceration and have to go somewhere where they're less likely to be able to have contact with their family, because sometimes that's hard to be able to have reasonable contact in a jail setting. So first of all, having a jail, whether it's local or somewhere else, where that is as functional as possible, and as easy as possible to maintain that family connection is important. The second thing is when those people are taken out of the community to be incarcerated. That's definitely one of the factors that's going to be on my mind when we talk about whether to do this or not. The local people that are going to jail for a while that have to sit behind bars it would be best if they were still, in my opinion, it would be best if they were still in their community and still had more ready access to their families and friends. Because it gives them a better chance of feeling like they're still part of something when they come out. There's less of a wall that's been created by their experiences. And a little, in my opinion, and I'm not a professional at this, but that's just a human gut reaction to how the system works best. So if we had to make a decision where we were absolutely forced, because we looked at all those factors and considered that alongside the financial payback of the different potential solutions to this, that would be a very important factor for me if I were still sitting here when the decision got made.
And I appreciate that statement, because there's a huge personal impact. I mean, being in jail is really hard. And being in jail outside of your community is even harder. And being in jail is really hard for the family, and having somebody in your family in jail and having that person be far away is just even harder. And it breaks down the family in ways that I think there's studies out there, I'm sure, and I'm sure we could find some studies. But the impact on that is, the personal impact is just, to me, that is the most critical thing. I mean, we can all survive. We go home at the end of the day, regardless of how we function, but the human impact is really big.
Yeah, I think, and it's well said. The only thing I would add to it is the state, you probably are aware, has formed a jail standards commission. The standards that they come up with are likely to require a change in our jail, very likely. We're hopeful and intend to, I think, make sure that that increase in standards comes with some support, some financial support for us to be able to meet them. And that's a conversation, that's for me kind of the conversation. It wouldn't make sense for us to go very far down a road of trying to figure out how to remodel a jail when you don't know what the standards are going to be in just a couple of years. Just to give you all a sense of kind of that conversation might start to heat up.
Yeah, those unfunded mandates are a little hard to plan for.
Yeah, they can be. And, I mean, of course, you can't frame everything as an unfunded mandate, right? Because counties are required to operate jails, and we should be doing so in a way that's humane. And so a better definition of humane is sometimes necessary when you look at the state of some of the jails around the state.
Yeah, I'll go out on a limb and say that my personal bias is towards an ideal situation for a small county like Clear Creek is that you had a modern state-of-the-art place that wasn't like going to Disneyland necessarily. We understand that being in jail is being in jail, but that it's it's a reasonable enough place, reasonable enough accommodations that the sheriff's department isn't battling to try to keep it up to standards and keep because of its aging state and the state of its infrastructure and everything of the building. And then it provides, a little daylight and a few things like that, the kind of things but that it would be scaled to the size of our community needs and would be located, locally. It'd be here. And it would be new, modern, and not bigger than it needed to be, but as big as it needed to be, and meet all standards that are both humane and safe for the people that are there, both the inmates and the jailers and the people that work there and all that stuff. That's what ideally I'd love to have if we could figure out how to afford it. That's my bias right now. That would be my goal, is to make that happen. If that for other reasons was financially infeasible, then we'd have to find a way to reach as many of those goals as possible through some other method. You know, if remodeling that down there was the right solution, then, you know, we'd have to figure out how to do it. If it's good, you know, we have to do whatever we have to do at the end of the day. But anyway, now you know what, if this was on my Christmas list, that's what it would be as far as the jail goes. But I probably won't include the jail on my Christmas list.
That's on my Christmas list too, so we can have similar lists. Well, thank you. And I want to thank Brian and Peter as well. So, you know, I think I've been chief judge for almost a couple of years. So we reached out. I think we've got a dialogue and we've met each other a little bit. So I appreciate that as well. So thank you, the two of you, for reaching out and having a dialogue with us as well. So we appreciate that.
And this is Sean. I am dialing in from the road, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for paying us a visit. I apologize that I wasn't able to be there in person today. And I think George really did a good job at the beginning of this conversation about confinement to express my views. One that I'm proud of is seeking to make decisions based on evidence. And we haven't gathered that much evidence jail situation, in my opinion. My take on what KRW told us is the current status quo is untenable, right? We have infrastructure issues. We have a facility that is quite dated now, and there's going to come a time in the future where we're going to have to do something different. And I think that all three of us feel like we need to evolve that discussion and start forming a picture of what that's going to look like for Randy and I, our terms end at the end of next year. So I think that's really all I have to say about that for now. But again, thank you so much for paying us a visit.
Well, thank you. And thank you for having us. We appreciate it. It's good to have a dialogue and to meet face to face sometime. And I'm always willing to come down here. I really don't hesitate to reach out if there's something you want to talk about, whether it's the two of you. One of my priorities is getting out to the counties more often. So it's a good excuse for me to come and see my team as well. So I'm happy to come down here if there's things we need to talk about. I think it's part of being good partners, and we've got a good partnership. We really feel we have good partnership with Clear Creek and that we always have. So thank you for that.
And speaking of good partners, I also wanted to thank the sheriff and his staff for the level of security they provide us and looking out for both the court and probation staff here. We appreciate your partnership.
I agree. It does go both ways. Both the judges and stuff, I deal with them all the time. Cindy Jones comes over at least once a week in my office and we just sit down and talk. And the guys see her and they talk to her. She's been a big influence on that relationship, and I really appreciate that. We don't talk about cases, we just talk about everything else. We sit on the JCRB board together, juvenile review board together. Like, I forget which one of you said it, but she's out in the community a lot, and that really gets a lot of attention. But our relationship with the courts, the security, all that stuff has been fantastic. We've had no problems with anything at all. The court grants and stuff, we're trying to move some of that forward. You guys have assisted with that. We had an emergency and you guys pushed that through. We really appreciate that. So we work really well together all the way up and down the line.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And one other perspective, certainly on the probation end, we will try to do our part to work with folks in the community as long as possible so that they aren't in the jail. And likewise, our partnership with the sheriff's department and with the security is just invaluable. I was just talking with staff a little bit this morning about some more recent situations and the response. And I was looking at camera placement up there and just getting a better sense, as I haven't spent as much time in this office. And that's just so important. We really, in general, on probation now versus 5 years ago even, let alone 10, 15, 20 years ago, the individuals that we're working with on probation are so much more high risk. So having that support close at hand and responsive is so key and so appreciated.
All right, well, you guys have other things on your agenda, I'm sure. But thank you. I enjoyed coming down and meeting you and I appreciate it.
Nice to meet all of you.
Beth.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks.
So I think we'll take a, really, it's
I do my contact information.
She's outside. Thank you.
what?
Do you remember a Mike Breeze?
Oh, she's outside. Okay. Yeah, I'm not seeing her on.
I'm gonna take a quick bio break.
Okay.
See you. Yes, you too. Good to see you. Great.
So we're having a work session with the Tourism Bureau for our next, did somebody we missed the first part of what I said there?
No, you're good.
Welcome to Cass and members of the Tourism Board. We are having a work session regarding the lodging tax revenue. And I know Cass is listed on the agenda, but I think actually should have said Brian, and Brian will open the discussion with an introduction, I think. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just real brief, just a reminder, Cass was here on April 4th to provide their biannual update of the Tourism Bureau, give an overview of their work, their priorities, et cetera. And during that meeting, questions came up with respect to the recent election in the town of Georgetown here, with the fact that we're no longer collecting lodger's tax here in the town. In addition to that, the county itself had a successful election with respect to broadening our ability with respect to how we use the lodger's tax money going forward. So 40% being allotted to lodger's tax, 60% to a couple other items. And so multiple questions came up on April 4th with respect to how that was going to impact the Tourism Bureau, what it means for their work, what it means for their work specifically in the town of Georgetown, et cetera. So that's just kind of by way of a brief open. It was a request of the board, I think, in conjunction with Cass, for this work session and talk about specifically the tax and what it means moving forward. So that's just a quick overview of why we're here and how we got here. So I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, well, I think we turn over to Cass now.
Well, good morning, and I think Cameron Marlin is joining us online, if you can see her on there.
Cross her over.
Okay, great. And that will be the board, and so I'm not sure if all of you have met the board of directors, but this is 3, and then Cameron's online, so, well, I think you've all met occasionally, right? So thanks for having us, and I'm gonna let John take the lead on this, and you just have discussion about where we are and where we're going, since he's the chair of our board, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Well, yeah, and I think George brought it up. I was unable to attend the last meeting, but I watched it, and you made, the comment that we need to kind of have with the changes, how do we continue moving forward and identify kind of our goals? And I think that's kind of what we've envisioned, kind of talking about this, taking a look at our budget. I think we've got a couple potential scenarios to analyze, moving forward with the projections that Brian has provided to us. But then I think also taking into consideration if something similar happens in Idaho Springs that has happened in Georgetown, that would also change our trajectory as we move forward. So I think we've got to kind of look at 2 different scenarios, figure out how we can keep this group sustainable. And we've got some healthy reserves that we can work with. I mean, we can crunch some numbers and see, but I think we're looking to you guys to provide us a little more insight into what, we all understand the transition to destination management versus marketing, but how do we, what are our priorities moving forward? Where do you guys see us having an impact as we move forward? And then I think we can look at our budget and figure out how long we can move forward at current rates, and then how long we could potentially move forward if there is a change in Idaho Springs as well.
I think a good way to look at it is, a starting point is, of course, there's mathematical facts that we can see that's the result of 3 different things that passed, a state law that enabled us to hold that local election we held, and then the election in Georgetown. And then again, as you mentioned, there's the potential for future elections that could change the picture even further. And so then I think it also leads us into a discussion of what the roles are in terms of, what the role of your board would be in trying to function as destination managers versus marketers, when, according to the math, a maximum of 40% of a revenue that has now declined is what's available to you. And is there room in there, other than through the marketing that you do to promote responsible tourism, to have that as a major theme? But I think in terms of managing behavior, it kind of a lot of that falls into our public lands operations also. We have a trails crew. We have what's called at this time a recreation department. We've had discussions about changing the name of the recreation department to a county lands department or something like that. We haven't gone anywhere with that. There's nothing decided. We haven't had a substantive conversation, but we've talked about, changing it so that we're thinking about it from a management standpoint as opposed to a simple promotion, of getting more of this and more of that when we know that there's a limit and there's capacity. There's places we can have more. There's places we ought to have less going on with regard to recreation as an example. And so I think, it's a good discussion to have. And if you're limited to if you take the projection for 2025 and 2024 at under $300,000 and multiply it out 40%, the maximum you can get out of that is somewhere under $120,000, And so that's, short of grants and other sources of funding that you're able to come up with, that's a pretty limited amount of funds to work with to expect to do anything beyond staff and minimal marketing, again, unless you have other sources of information. So I would think that, the first thing that pops to my head is that the destination management side of it would be in the tone of your marketing, because you're not going to have much out of this fund to work with, to do much more than marketing at that time. So the place you can do the most good with destination management is to market good practice, as you invite people. And I will just say my own bias is that I think that part of the reason that drove Georgetown was that they felt like, and we'll probably hear, I'm sure I can find different opinions about this, but that they felt that they're one of their primary commercial districts, which is kind of hidden away from the great flood of people that's already out there on I-70 that's already in the county. We're not aware that downtown Georgetown, 6th Street even existed. And so they wanted to be able to redirect the tourism marketing that they were responsible for generating to advertise, as you've heard me say in some of the different meetings, to advertise cash registers in the place where we really benefit from tourism economically, for the most part. And so I think advertising the places and activities and businesses, as opposed to, advertising for more dispersed recreation, for an increase in dispersed recreation, hoping for a trickle down into those economic collection points is, it could be a change in strategy where if your funds are limited, then you're using them to most effectively advertise for it where the economic payback is direct. And, Georgetown removed themselves from the formula in large part because of that, because they wanted to focus on advertising their town and their cash registers as opposed to advertising the stuff that was up in the woods around them. And so it was a good lesson. It was a wake-up call that somebody reacted to it because of what they perceived to be a shortcoming on their behalf. So that's just my first, right out. And I didn't prepare any of those remarks. I thought of them while I was listening to you just then, trying to, and having looked at the numbers and seeing what that really meant. So, George?
Yeah, and if you guys aren't aware, Sean is listening. He may or may not be able to participate, but he's in transit today.
Yeah, I'm here. I can speak. I'll weigh in after you do, George.
Okay. So, I have a couple of kind of questions. And my apologies, I could look it up in the public documents. How much do you have in your reserve right now?
I don't know the exact number we have in our reserves, but when we went through the numbers after this year, if we stay on our budget, we'll have approximately 700,000 in our budget, plus additional lodging taxes to come in. So it'll be closer to 800 if these forecasts remain on point.
Okay, so one way to look at it is that you don't have an emergency next year where suddenly your operating budget has to be half of what it was in 2019. Because I'm looking at the numbers in 2019, your operating budget was, or your revenues were around $205,000. And we're projecting it'd be about half of that as early as next year. So, I mean, I would be comfortable with seeing a budget that's similar to what we're used to for next year. Maybe I'd say I'm somewhat comfortable with that. I think, you know, that we are in an urgent situation to try to figure out, you know, what we can do with less. I just want to point out that Georgetown's decision does not have to be permanent. Georgetown could decide to take a different path this year, next year, the year after that. They do have mechanisms to get a tax on lodging that does not elbow the county out. The mechanism I have in mind might be helpful for them because it also involves them not having to collect the tax themselves. That's a conversation that I would love to have with Georgetown. I personally think when we think about the right priorities, I think that it's more important for us to have the revenues we need to invest in managing tourism, investing in housing, investing in childcare, than it is to make sure that our visitors are getting a good price in hotels. That's just my take. And I don't know where that conversation with Georgetown might go, but I intend to have it. So that's kind of a piece of what I have in mind. However, I do think it's important for us on a pretty urgent timeline to go through a thought experiment of what it really looks like to operate at $100,000 a year operating budget. It's a story we need to be able to tell. And it's something that we need to start to plan for and understand. So I would really encourage us to look at it through that lens, you know? This is a thought experiment at this point. What does it look like when we have $100,000 a year to spend? That's a reality that may visit us soon. And I don't know, you know, what other sources of funding you can anticipate. Randy brought that up. Some ideas that I have are, you know, I know you're proud that the visitor guide doesn't sell advertising. We might be in a situation where that's not a possibility anymore. If the visitor guide is going to continue, it might need to sell advertising. And I don't know what kind of revenues are out there for that. You know, like what that could be worth. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there now. And then, I mean, to Randy's point, you know, I think trying to really go through a process where we figure out what our top strategic priorities are in terms of marketing and what it would look like to narrow the focus to those top strategic priorities. And like Randy, and I'd love to hear your opinions, I think focusing on the businesses themselves, the business districts themselves is probably what that feels like for me, although I don't intend to dictate that. I would love to hear your opinions on it.
And I just, as a clarification for me, when I say advertising on the commercial sector that benefits from this, that includes the business districts, includes those recreational based businesses that we have right now, you know, making sure people know about the rafting and all those kind of things, which we've done in general terms. Some of those, in other words, to be focusing towards directing people to those businesses. You know, I think, but what I had some more to say, but I want to stop and go to Sean.
Hey, Randy, thanks. Yeah, I agree with the sentiment that's been expressed so far, and I would probably even be a little more blunt about it. I mean, my interpretation is that Georgetown gave us, these two boards collectively, they gave us a vote of no confidence. They basically said to us, we want to take control over how these dollars that are getting generated in our community are deployed because we don't agree with the way that things have happened so far. And I think that that's something that we need to sit on and think about and reflect on. And I think that at some point soon, to me, it makes sense to engage Georgetown's leadership and, maybe being a little Idaho Springs leadership to see if there's a way that we can work together. I mean, we're a small county, right? And these type of, the way that this happened is highly disappointing. And I think we should take at least 50% of the ownership about how this all unfolded. But with that, I don't think the way we've been doing business is going to work going forward. And, I'm not sure exactly where this is going to land, but the message that I got from this is we have not represented our business communities in a way that they feel comfortable, and they took action. And exactly how we move forward, I'm open to figuring that out collectively, but just focusing on the actual to continue to provide a perfect service at a lower level.
Sean, we got the bulk of that. You were kind of a little bit cutting out there towards the end especially, but I think we got the bulk of it. And I'm going to try to summarize it really quickly and it was a little bit similar to the last thing I said, which was the first part which was that this was a wake-up call where we were sent a message by Georgetown that what we were doing or what wasn't working for them. And there's a lesson to be learned there. And then there is cause for us to therefore also initiate a discussion with them to be able to work together more holistically to make sure that whatever strategies we do follow are to the benefit of their purpose, which is to raise the money. And that's pretty much what I got out of it. So.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. The only thing I may add to that is, while I'm disappointed in what Georgetown did, I'm not surprised, and I'm not convinced that I wouldn't have done the same thing if I was in their shoes. So I, for one, am not and I'm not suggesting anyone is, but I'm not in favor of shaming Georgetown, or I think we should just move on from this. But I do think it's really important for us to engage them in a public dialogue and find out if there's a way that we can align our interests and move forward together rather than what's happened.
Thank you. Brian.
I should have said this at the beginning. I apologize. I just want to make sure we take advantage of the opportunity we have here with respect to both full boards are here, both live in person, also online. If there are any specific questions we want to make sure we get answered today, we get those out on the table, both from the tourism board's perspective as well as the county commissioner's perspective. I just heard a couple of top strategic marketing priorities moving forward, engaging the Georgetown leadership, use of grants, et cetera, for funding. But I just want to make sure we get out on the table anything specific you guys want to answer today, so or at least know it's something we need to answer moving forward, so we make the best use of the time we have together. So I just wanted to offer that up.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I agree. And I'd love to kind of hear what you guys are thinking and what your response is to what's been said thus far and questions you have, what you view as next steps.
So I was going to go.
Well, I mean, I do appreciate Sean's comments. I mean, I think there's multiple reasons for why Georgetown did what they did. And for a little bit, it felt like the finger was being pointed at us specifically for that. And I think there's a lot of reasons that play into their decision-making, because we are still in communication with them. We both have an interest in continuing to work together in the future. We're just, with all this uncertainty, we're not sure exactly what that looks like. So as we define our path forward, that will help us kind of figure out how we're going to collaborate with them and work with them as we move forward with with the change in lodging tax revenues. So I do appreciate that. And I think that, that continued collaboration is important. And I think for us, it's really figuring out these top marketing and management priorities as we move forward. What do we want to do? We've got enough in our reserves to be sustainable for a while. I mean, if we stay at this $100,000, that essentially covers our operating expenses. So anything that we want to do, management or marketing wise, is going to come from the reserves. So if we are looking at maintaining, that $200,000 to $250,000 overall budget range, we've got a limited amount of time. Yeah.
Right.
On that. And obviously a lot of things can change in that time. And It obviously is our goal to make this organization sustainable beyond that time period. But with any potential changes that come, obviously that will affect us. We'll continue to pursue grants. We did get another $25,000 grant to help us develop our micro visitor center in our office there. We'll stay abreast of those opportunities and continue to pursue them when they're available. We've talked about the visitor guide stuff, and we've got to take a hard look at that. It's been a long time since I've tried to do that sort of stuff in the community, and it's a lot of work and it's not always fruitful. So we'll have to see, because we've got to have a setup that will be affordable for everybody to participate, not just the big players in town. We want everybody to have the opportunity to participate. And if you do that, you've got to make it affordable, and then you just got to sell more. And then that takes a lot of time and energy, but it's something we're still considering. But the grants, other funding, other opportunities are obviously going to be of utmost importance as we move forward to make us as sustainable as long as we can. So I think as we've talked about moving forward in this meeting, identifying these priorities, getting some insight from you guys would be helpful because, as Randy said, it's going to come down to a math equation here, but what do we want to see? What do we want to get for those dollars? And that'll help us figure out what we need to allocate on an annual basis to keep that going.
I think that I'll try to, if I can take liberty for just a second, what I do is like paint a picture that does two things. Maybe not tell you how to do exactly what you do in terms of knowing which people to talk to. But I think the first thing I want to say is the object of tourism, the original object of lodging tax, tourism taxes was to help boost the economy. And the economy is only boosted when it realizes action at the cash registers, at the points of transaction, where the money changes hands. And there was a time when we felt like everyone was passing by us. And so we used this concept and I was there at the initial, before we ever had a lodging tax, at the initial discussions about it up at Mary Jane Lovely's house and stuff. And some people said to me, without tourism, none of this would be here. And I said, well, no, without all of this stuff, tourism wouldn't be here, and you have the ability to kill the goose that laid the golden egg for you. And what we have now is a Forest Service and CPW that are sending us photo collections and videos of what we're no longer calling social trails, just so you know, but we're calling them illegal trails in the woods because they're going into places of wildlife habitat and finding whole new trail systems built that they didn't even know were there because they hadn't gone back in there because they didn't want to disturb the game. And it's hikers, it's mountain bikers, it's the four-wheel drive expands illegally in a different way where they more spread the network they're already on. But there are places of wildlife where there are wildlife trails and no human trails, where human trails are now being inserted. Between Strava and 1,000 other apps, and I can just start punching anything on my cell phone and find it. Everybody knows where we are. And if you look at another factor I'd like to bring up is if you look at the traffic counts at the EJMT, at the Eisenhower Johnson Memorial Tunnel, and then you look at those at the Veterans Memorial Tunnel, you get two totally different pictures. And the Veterans Memorial Tunnel has way larger traffic counts than the Eisenhower Johnson Tunnel. And some of that is commuter traffic, people that are who live here and work in Denver or live in Denver and work here. But some of that is also people that are coming here and finding things to do, heading out over the other passes or recreating here. And the recreating here part is in keeping with what the land managers are seeing now. So the concept of trying to advertise what's here so that people know where it's here through social communication, everybody in the world knows what's here right now. It's not necessary to remind people that Clear Creek County has mountains and rivers and trails and stuff like that. If you could turn that off and it wouldn't change, I don't think it would change one bit the amount of traffic that's already out there. So that, if you think about that as something that doesn't need to be a very large part of what you're doing, other than the occasional picture in the background, but where the verbiage and psychology directs people towards the places where you can collect the money, I think that's where you can begin to hone down and reduce your expenses to say, here's what we're going to target. And then I think the next thing I'll throw is who you target could be really important. And we're collecting data through NOCO that's going to tell us a lot. We're developing maps of ecological sensitivity throughout. Clear Creek County is one of only 3 counties that's west of the plains that has not had comprehensive ecological sensitivity data created for its county. The other 2 are Montezuma and Rio Blanco, which are the northwest and southwest corner counties of the state. Everyone else has had this done except Clear Creek. That's up in the mountains or to the west where the tourism recreation areas are. So they've all seen that need. And so we're collecting that, but we're also collecting mobility data, cell phone data of where people are most frequently recreating at about a dozen or more sites in Clear Creek County. Right now, that's become available to us. So there may be some tools there where we can begin to think about who's here and where are they coming from and how do we contact the people that we know are going to be here anyway and direct them towards. And that's going to take a pretty high-tech analysis to do that, but it might be possible to develop some targeted use of that data to help you market to the people you know are going to be here anyway or their demographics more exactly, to direct them towards then our economic centers to be able to use your stuff so that you can lower the size. You might be able to more surgically target with some of this new data that's coming out. And I know you've already done work like that in the past. Cass has been really good about trying to figure that out. But we have more data coming online that might help you be able to narrow down that focus so the cost of advertisement might be less. And that's on the demand side of things. The supply side, George talked about, trying to work with Georgetown. They may change what they want. But I think my personal opinion, and I said it before, way before, and I said it earlier today, and I'll say it again now, is to surgically target your actions toward businesses as opposed to trying to attract more people when all the land managers are scratching their heads over how to control what we've got right now and prevent the proliferation of right now numerous illegal trails throughout the county because people are trying to get away from the traffic that's already there on the established trails because they're already running into so many people there that they're creating their own illegal trail systems to get away from it. So we've mission accomplished on letting people know about how beautiful Clear Creek is to recreate in. Everybody knows it. So.
Do they have any information on, I mean, I guess they don't, they just discovered these trails, but who's creating these trails? Is it locals? Is it visitors?
It's probably a combination because there are people that come, I can't say that. I don't want to say what I don't know. I can say we've seen some, there's some areas of, and I'm asking for data on it and in our mobility data, and we're starting an unauthorized trails project at NOCO. And the Forest Service will be weighing in with us as well as our own recreation staff. Matt, John Butcher, and myself will be attending that, and Amy oversees that department. And so we're just actually going to be having some meetings coming up in the next couple of weeks. Our first meetings where we're really coming together and honing in on the unauthorized trail problem to understand where they are and what's going on. And a part of it is, again, changing the language because social trails sounds like, well, the people's trails, where the people know where they could be going that haven't been provided by the Forest Service. And what that really means is how do you systemically avoid staying the trail? And what that contributes to is huge trail fragmentation where wildlife trails get cut into smaller and smaller pieces and the wildlife become more and more desperate or socialized to interact differently with people. And that's a big problem we're trying to solve, which is, again, why I suggest getting away with it. But I talked way too long now, and I'd like to stop and let somebody else get in there.
So one interesting thing that came up at the last Recreation Outdoor Master Planning meeting was looking at the difference in the data that was collected from the survey we did in 2019, and then the survey that was conducted for the Recreation Outdoor Master Plan. And those surveys from the ROMP team were done mostly at trailheads and in the outdoor natural areas within the county. And our surveys were mostly done in municipal areas and high traffic tourism destinations within the county. One interesting fact that was found was that on average, both visitors spend $51 in the local economy when they visit per person per time. But that the major separation is that the outdoor use at the trails is in-state visitation, and the municipal high tourism destinations is out-of-state visitation. And so they're looking at this data, and I know they're going to come and present more information to you in a few weeks, but I thought that was really interesting and in line with what you're talking about right now. So yes, we're also studying data and looking at it to figure out how to best utilize our resources. And that's one example that our businesses are benefiting $51 per person, whether they're coming to our trails or coming to our towns.
Well, maybe it's better to focus on getting more per person by focusing on getting them there instead of just getting more people out there so you can collect $51 on a greater number of people in the woods.
Okay.
Maybe you should try to get $100 a person by making sure that more of the people that are already there go to where you want them to go, instead of just making the mass larger so that you'll organically receive 51. That's my immediate reaction to that thought. But go ahead, George. I'm sorry.
That is interesting information, and look forward to dipping more into it. And I mean, the way this is landing on me is basically, I mean, if we can't sell ads for the visitor guide, I think we should probably stop doing it. I think it's time to stop doing the visitor ad. That's just me. I don't mean to dictate, but that's my opinion. And I think, that will free up some space. 4 years of sustainability isn't I think what we're looking for. And when I look through your budget, the big line item that I think we can do away with and not interrupt where we're trying to go with destination management, with targeted marketing, is to stop doing the visitor guide. So that's my opinion. But I just want to acknowledge we're a little bit over time. We still haven't heard from either of you two. So
Yeah.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I also don't want, if you have something to say, I'd love to hear it.
No, I mean,
We'll take as long as we need. I want to hear.
Gotcha. As a board member, I always felt it was my role, our role to just kind of, to a large degree, follow your direction. And that's, we've kind of switched from the promotion to management, going back over a year now. And I agree. I mean, there's issues that need to be addressed. As a business owner, I'm a little concerned just that, since I started doing business in Clear Creek County in 2008, which was like the bottom, that was when the world was falling apart financially. And since then, we've just had this incredible boom, and it's raining tourists, and I guess I just feel like there's this assumption that it's just always going to continue. Because we haven't had, the pandemic was the pandemic, and that was just like kind of this weird anomaly, but we haven't had a sustained downturn in my experience doing business in this county since 2008, and so I just kind of worry that this is just an unfortunate time to really have to cut back on the promotion or management side, whatever, our budget in general. Because, as I have been around, everyone was talking about back then was the mine closing, and, what is the county going to do, and how are we going to replace these revenues? And it seems that the most put forward solution was tourism. That's what we got to look to. That's what we got to do. So as a business owner, it's concerning, to see this hey, now we have too many, we got all these problems. Let's scale down. And I just worry about what the consequences of that are, that it might be more detrimental than we're anticipating. But do we need housing help? Absolutely. Childcare? Absolutely. So it's just a really tough situation. But I think it's a good thing we have the reserves, and this is why we have the reserves. There's a few reasons why. One, I think as a board, we've been conservative, and we could have easily spent all this money and been like, look, we spent all this money and look at all these tourists. We did our job, but I think we've been prudent and diligent in our research and trying to be as efficient as we can with the money we spend. On top of that, the pandemic, like the March, when was our board meeting in March of 2020? It was like the first week of March or whatever. At that point, we saw what was going on, and this was before, it might have even been before the first case in Colorado. We decided at that point to stop all marketing, all future commitments. We called everybody, said, we're not marketing. In addition, we clawed back all the money we'd spent January and February. That's a big reason why we have a big reserve. But also, you talk about other forms of revenue. Cassandra is like a grant predator. Like she,
She is.
she's awesome. And several $100,000 since I've been on the board has come from her looking for grants. So, as far as like looking forward with the budget, I think we need to try and continue what we've, just like you suggested, continue doing what we've been doing. And that looking at the numbers we have, that's going to take 4 years before we run out, and hopefully more solutions will become apparent as we get through that period. But I guess, I don't know if I said anything coherent there.
Thanks for your thoughts.
And it's like, I see all the sides of it, I didn't grow up here. I'm a native, but I didn't grow up in Clear Creek County. And I've had interactions, I had a great interaction with a fly fisherman a few years ago when I was floating by with my customers and waved, and he flicked me off. And I'd seen him around town quite a bit. So after, we went back to the shop. After the trip, I drove back down and, I said, hey, I was the guy that you flipped off. And like, I'm not coming to argue. I want to, why? What is the thing? And he said, I've been taking my son here since he was young. And when we used to fish at this spot, we were by ourselves. And now it's just like raft after raft after raft. And I get that. I do. So it's tough. But, when we're faced with the economic cold equation of revenue, and what this county needs to thrive, it's tough.
Yeah.
Hi. I think it's a constant pivot. You were saying you started in 2008. We saw the pandemic. We are here where we are. When I joined the Tourism Bureau, I come from not only doing business in the county, but as a resident and as a mom as well. And I can align with what you're saying, Randy, because I hiked 2 years ago and saw someone let their dog chase a mountain goat. And it's like, how come we don't have a warden out here? How come people, like, I wanted to ticket him, but I'm like, I shouldn't do that. And so looking at what we've done and thinking about Georgetown, Idaho Springs, in the time that we're talking about, there really hasn't been a very good operating chamber of commerce, I think, in all of the large anchors of areas. And it's not out of the lack of trying to reach out. And if I look back in my head of what the Tourism Bureau has boasted, there have been a lot of things geared towards the restaurants, towards mining, getting tours going. And how do we get them here to spend more than $52? That's a constant conversation. How do we get them to not just to park for the 2 hours and then keep going, right? How do we get them to stay overnight? Where do they stay overnight? And so all of these, I think, are part of the pivot and like going with it. Housing, yes, is a challenge. I know we have the football field that has some housing coming and, the mobile homes that are being purchased. So that's great to see that there is action and things being handled with that. Childcare, I have 2 little kids here. This has been a conversation for me for the past 11 years here. So I think that's great. I think, as to John attested, we are in conversation with Georgetown, so to speak, and Idaho Springs. So future collaborations on that, marketing together to keep it within the cash registers is definitely on mind. As far as like the visitor's guide, the conversation has been there for advertisements and what it should be and what it looks like. Should it be in print, this and that? So those are, again, pivoting conversations. But thank you guys for the open table today to not direct to where it should go, but to collaborate together and see the success of this, right? On how it can manage, bring fruition to things, stay together, and keep Clear Creek awesome how we know it, but we don't want people to come and tell them to go home. We do want people who live here to have a quality of life. So it's a balance all the way around.
Thank you. Sean, haven't heard from you for a bit. Are you there right now?
I also have Cameron on too. I don't know if she wants to.
Yeah, real quick, I think this has been a good conversation. I think my takeaway is we need to invite the business owners to have more of a voice in what we're talking about, because we had some interesting wide-ranging conversations about, you know, illegal trails. And I think we need to be very disciplined and data-driven in terms of whatever policy decisions we kind of rally around. And I certainly know there's illegal trails that's happened in the Forest Service. My knowledge of them are really in Beaverbrook. I don't really know of any other ones. Well, actually, it's not true. Some of the stuff around Warren Gulch and then the Mojo trails. But I think we run the risk of confusing our message when we talk about things that are a little too far, maybe off the beaten path from Georgetown's perspective. I'll probably just leave it at that. Thanks.
George?
Yeah, I mean, I think my takeaway, as far as just like what are our next steps, is really trying to have a conversation with the leadership of Georgetown and Idaho Springs in particular, and you know, get a sense for how this is landing on them, what they'd like to see. I'd love for someone from our team to be involved in that. I don't know if it's a commissioner or a staff member. We can have that conversation and figure that out. And then I really would like to reiterate and ask that we see, you know, like a pro forma budget that's based around $100,000 a year in revenues, just so that we kind of understand the stakes. You know what I mean? I think it's important for us to understand the stakes. 4 years is not that far. And I think that would be really helpful, right? I'm not suggesting that you would pass that budget for next year. I think that would be a mistake as well. So I think as I look at next steps, I think those are the next steps that are worth taking. And I really appreciate your comments, and you've got a balanced view of what's going on here, and I appreciate that.
But I guess as far as like a direction of which way we should go, I mean, do we try and sustain it longer than 4 years, or do we take the money we have now and be like, what we have now, we can keep going how we've been going, but only for 4 years? Because I guess as a business owner, that's what I would rather see. I wouldn't want to see that the marketing and management spigot be turned off. You know, and no one's got you know, the ability to see into the future, but you know, history suggests that we could be in for a pretty decent recession. And so you know, that is not the time to stop the marketing, whether it be promotion, management, whatever. That's the time maybe to even increase. If you're you know, thinking strictly as like a business owner, which you're not, but yeah, that's so. I guess I'm asking, what do you think? What do you guys think? Do we try and just you know, continue our efforts at the rate we've been going, and it runs out when it runs out, or do we try and you know, greatly reduce what we're doing and extend that?
I think you should try to have something that's sustainable and goes longer, but I think we should all take away from this discussion and what we heard here today and think about it a little bit, which is about that surgical aspect. To do the same things you've been doing and last for only 4 years, when we're suggesting that one of the biggest line items that you've been doing has been to advertise for more people in the woods so you can collect $51 on the average visit, the average number of visitors that are out there in the woods, as opposed to stop trying to increase the density in the woods to have a higher number of $51 hits and think about getting people down here who are already here is a good way to think about. In other words, we're doing the same thing we're doing at the county right now, replicate what we're doing at the county. You know, we need to live within our budget. And so we're tightening our belt everywhere we can and trying to be as surgical as possible and do only as much as we can. As far as marketing and management, I just want to leave you with a kernel on that. I heard the thing said once before when we first brought this up that, well, now the tourism board will get into figuring out which trails we need to market and which we don't. It's like, no, that's not the job of the tourism board to figure that out. It's the job of the tourism board to get told which of those trails by the land managers you should market or not. And then we realized we don't need to market any of them right now. And I think I hear what you're saying about coming here in 2008 during a recession when it was bad. I've been here since 71 and I've seen the recessions of the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000, 2008 and on. And what people still want to do is go outside. And if they can't afford to drive as far as Vail, or they're impacted by congestion, don't want to go there when it is busy, they learn that they can do it close. So the cheapest thing you can do in a recession when you're strapped for money is go do what's cheap and do it somewhere nearby. And my experience over about 50 years has been to see that when we've had recessions, since the tunnel was in Vail and everything got going a little while after I got here, is that through many of those recessions, the visitation in Clear Creek County actually didn't go down. And visitation, for example, in Idaho Springs along the strip, if anything, went up because people weren't driving past because they couldn't afford to go as far anymore. So learning how to predict and target yourself the right direction in a recession versus out of a recession, but again, to direct towards the businesses and the cash registers is a really good way to think about it. And with regard finally to the amount of change, you know, I've seen exactly what you've seen too. And I've seen it when there was nobody on Grays and Tories all day long while I hiked through in August. I was the only person there. And that was rarity that would happen. And now you can't go up there without hundreds of people being there. And so we've, again, mission accomplished on that side. There's 8 billion people on the planet. A whole lot of people of them are moving, a whole lot of those are moving to Denver, and the ones that are moving to the Denver area and the Denver metro region really have a high number of those people that want to get out in one form or another, recreate in the woods. And the first place they go is the closest place they learn about. So we're mission accomplished there. And I don't think you'll ever see a day again that will have so little visitation in the woods that we suffer because of that. And that's why I think, again, focusing on the businesses, when I've kind of just beaten that drum throughout the meeting, is the best way to use the limited funds you have. But I'm going to try to hone down the operation to extend yourself farther than 8 years and have longer than a 4-year vision, and not just keep doing the same thing we've been doing. If what we've tried to identify here is that somebody already bailed out Georgetown because they didn't like the way we were doing it. And so if we can hone that down, as the other commissioners have suggested. But I also think having a conversation with Sean's comment was really good about having a conversation with the municipalities to understand what their vision is and who they're trying to attract, because that also helps inform, you know, in general, what each one of the communities is trying to attract, helps inform those target audiences a little bit. And that's my just last parting thoughts.
Yeah, I think.
I had a really, really quick comment. I personally don't have any interest in spending time and energy figuring out what the budget looks like beyond 2024, because there's so much that we don't know now. We haven't really given Georgetown an opportunity to weigh in on this publicly. So I think it's probably kind of a fool's errand, and there's a significant amount of reserves. So my preference would be that we put that at the bottom of the priority list, and we kind of address the things that are right in front of us. And perhaps a year from now, or, you know, when we get some traction and actually kind of understand how things may play out, then we can revisit that.
Don makes a good point. I don't know that that's the top need, is to do what I was suggesting in drafting a $100,000 budget. Although I suspected that, you know, if we had to do it tomorrow, we could have one tomorrow.
Yeah, we've talked about it and we got it kind of penciled in. So, but yeah, I agree with that too.
But I mean, to answer your question, Alan, I mean, I think we need to understand both paths, both to inform our decision making and to be able to articulate both paths. And I think that that's, you know, I'm not suggesting that we try to act like Chicken Little, but being able to understand and communicate both paths is probably the best way to inform everyone's decisions that's involved in the process.
If I may, I would love to chime into this conversation.
Yeah, sorry, Cameron.
Thanks,
I had
Cameron.
one other thing that just popped into my head is having some of that reserve for that scenario you describe when visitation does start to drop because of a recession would be awesome. And that's all. Cameron, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say how much I appreciate this conversation. I feel like it was candid and open and honest and really productive. I think that as we are all in Clear Creek County looking at dwindling revenues, that just exactly like Alan said, this is not the right time to, close the spigot on marketing dollars. I also participate in the romp along with Cass. And one of the things that's yet to be determined is what is the long-term plan for enforcing the management decisions and protocols that they're making. Well, the Tourism Bureau, thank you, Cass, for talking about the interplay between the surveys and how the Tourism Bureau is able to support the work that the romp is trying to implement. And so I think that that's really important and really strategic for the county to make a long-term impact on the work that's being done right now. So that's what I wanted to say, and thank you.
I think that adds both the romp and, a lot of what goes on outside of our county lands is in our 80% public lands, or 60-some percent, about 70%, which is national forest, and that gets decided as much within the national forest operation as well as over at NOCO where we're doing regional planning. So those regional goals that filter through the romp to us from all of those entities, because the Forest Service is involved in the romp too. What Cameron just said is really important, is we ought to make sure we're not doing things that are counter to what's coming out of those plans.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, we're running a little behind, but I think it was time very well spent. I think it's a really important conversation, and I know it's, as you can see, it's top of mind for many of us. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for
All right. Thanks for your time. Let me go home and digest this meal.
A lot of information.
What to think about.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Matt, I am really sorry that we're running so far behind. I think we are. But we are next on our agenda is public hearing to discuss the redistricting maps for the commissioners' districts. I know the last time we had Matt in here, we did this thing where we let somebody leapfrog past him because we got so far behind. We're not going to do that to him today. So,
Can I just suggest, I want to hear, we have some executive sessions that are fairly important. I want to hear from Sean. Sean, you're supposed to be gone at 11. You may already have had to check.
No, he's there. He's just muted. So maybe he went somewhere where he ran out of service or something.
Does it make sense for us to ask if the interview with the JCRB member can happen after executive session?
yeah, that's a possibility.
I don't see that person for the interview. They could.
Is CASA on there?
What's that?
Is the CASA group on there?
Yes. Is that who they are? Okay, gotcha. I was gonna say I do see a different username that I'm not used to, so that could be.
Yeah, that's her.
How long do you think it will take you to give us your?
I can try and go pretty quick. I can probably be done in 5 to 10 minutes. I was just going to do a refresher and just a brief overview of the two district options. So I can talk pretty fast, hopefully. But I do want to make sure that we allow time for any public comment. So.
Do you want us to reach out to this interviewee while you're doing this item?
I can message her.
Please.
Yeah.
I'll message her and ask her if, they just went away. So-
Hold on, she just tried to call me.
Okay,
so-
well, sorry about that. We'll do that.
Okay.
She may have a scheduling issue also.
Okay.
Let's go ahead, Matt. please.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Let's see if we can pull this up.
She's gonna text me. I'm waiting.
box it
Okay, yeah, yeah.
down
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Sometimes that does something.
Okay, thanks.
There you go.
So after each federal census, each county must review commissioner districts to make sure that they're as equal in population as possible. New this go around, we are required to have not more than a 5% deviation between the most populated and the least populated commissioner district. The current commissioner districts have a deviation of 6.93%. So we do in fact need to go through a redistricting process. We have until September 30th this year to do so. The clerk and recorder has asked us if we can complete it by July 30th so that they can be given the month of August to update their address library ballot certification for the upcoming November elections and stuff. So that's what we're aiming for. This is the second of 3 public hearings where we're hearing and taking public comment. The first one was April 18th, and then the next one will be May 16th. After the last public hearing on May 16th, we must wait 30 days before adopting a new commissioner district and that resolution. So we're hoping to have that occur on June 20th. So with that, I'm going to just jump into the maps very quickly and just kind of give a brief overview.
Right.
So this is Commissioner District Option 1A, and it's very close to the current commissioner districts with a few subtle changes. And most of that is 2 areas. This area here in kind of pink has gone from in this option from District 3 to District 2. And then an area over here in the Floyd Hill area, I'll zoom in here, has gone from District 1 to District 2. Between the most populated and the least populated commissioner districts. But after having a meeting with you all, you suggested if there was perhaps a way to take into account some of the recent population or developments, pardon me, some of the recent developments that have occurred in Georgetown and Idaho Springs, where we know there's more population in those areas now. And so that's what this alternative 1B or option 1B does. This kind of takes the Fall River area here, most of the Fall River area excluding St. Mary's, and moves it from District 3 to District 1. The same area over here is moving from District 3 to District 2. But what this allows us to do is to maybe make a more complete district boundary over here from District 1 to District 2 in the Floyd Hill area. And it allows us to keep that entire Highland Hills subdivision together and complete. This option is closer to the 5%, but it is under the 5% deviation. And again, this option really kind of takes into account those 2 developments in Georgetown and in Idaho Springs. I touched on those last time. I'm not going to go into detail for sake of time unless you would like me to on what those areas were. To date, we have only received 1 public comment via email, and that is in your packet. And it's from a Fall River resident. I'm not sure if I'll be honest, I'm not sure what the protocol is, if I should read that or summarize what that is, or, I mean, it is.
I don't know that we need to read it, do we?
No, we just need public comment.
Okay.
And then we're.
Yep, so that's been included in the packet and is now part of the public comment. Sorry, I went through that pretty quickly, so. Do you have questions?
I don't. The second run through the maps is yielded some more thoughts that I will reserve for the last hearing. I do think just to make sure I understand where we're at, it's best for everybody if we have pretty solid opinions and can arrive at direction on which map we'd like to see by the next hearing.
Yeah, I think by the next hearing, I would hope to get a direction from you, but not a decision. And then in June 20th, what I will do is I will bring back or after, but I plan to bring back a resolution on one of these options or a variation of one of these options based on your input and have that up for adoption.
I'll just let you know up front that I don't get a lot of heartburn over either one of these maps. So, like I'm not going to be surprising anybody with any bombs that I haven't socialized in advance. So I think there's decent arguments for either one. And I kind of tend towards 1B for reasons that George has articulated well and Sean, and with which I agree. And so I'm not too, there's a lot of theories we can make about the future, but we'll get another adjustment in 10 years anyway. So, we'll figure it out then if we need to. So anyway, that said, that's all, it's my only comment and that's really a response to what George said, just a little reassurance that there's no sword I'm going to jump on in the middle of the field from what I've seen so far. So.
Might as well just
And thank you for your work on this. I really appreciate it. And your patience and waiting for your presentations each time.
No worries.
Sean, anything to say?
Yeah, I'm about to get on the train here at DIA, but I agree. I think the one that tilts a little more population to the Eastern District, District 2 makes all the sense just because it kind of, to some degree, future-proofs it, because I think we all agree that population growth is least likely to happen in that district.
Okay. With that, thank you. And I think we're done with this session for now, unless you have anything else to add.
I canceled her.
Could we just ask if there's any public comment?
Yeah, do we have any public comment? I'm sorry, you're right. Thank you.
She can't wait.
I'm not seeing anybody raise their hand online.
Okay. We have no one in the room that is raising their hand, so. Okay, with that, I think we've concluded this portion of the hearing. Did we make contact with the?
She can't wait until after exec. So either we can reschedule or do it now.
Sean, are you limited to 11 o'clock? That you have to leave?
Thank you, Matt.
I'm sure it's not the volume like that.
No, he's there. He's muted.
He might be insecure. I mean, I'll share. I don't think I have a ton of questions. Maybe we can get through this interview in shorter order.
I just turned the volume up. It was down.
Yeah, no, he's there, but he's muted. The last time the volume was down because it restarted and then it mutes everybody's volume when it restarts.
Okay.
I mean, it's not a strong preference, but maybe we just move forward. I don't think I have many
Let's
questions.
move forward. Let's have the interview real quickly.
Is she still on there?
She was literally 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, she jumped off. So, because we were talking about trying to do it after exec, which we couldn't do. So she jumped off.
Based on what she wasn't hearing.
Well, I think, we thought that we were going to do exec first and then try and do the interview, but we didn't know how long exec was going to be.
Okay. Well, if she's gone right now, then let's make a decision and go into executive session, I think. All right. So I move that and please send our apologies and reschedule for our interview if you would, please. We'd really appreciate that. So I move that we go into executive session for the following purposes.
Pursuant to CRS 24640224B for the county attorney to meet with the Board of County Commissioners for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions concerning potential claims arising from the death of CJ Class. And pursuant to CRS 24640224B for the county attorney to meet with the Board of County Commissioners for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions concerning potential quiet title litigation relating to a county adopted non-maintained secondary road along Fall River.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 I sent the link.
We will now go into executive session. No written minutes will be kept and no decisions will be made. You need to do anything up there?
Yeah, I'm just gonna turn the camera back on. There you go.
Good to go? Yeah, we have concluded our executive session. No decisions were made, no written minutes were kept of the meeting, and we are now adjourned for the day. Thank you.